A Day in Colonial Haiti by Philippe Girard. Narrated by Juliette Revere. 8 a.m. The wife washes her husband's clothes. Marie Goyo picks up her load of laundry with a heavy sigh. She woke up early this morning to collect the clothes, sort them, and soak the most heavily soiled pieces in lye. Then she fetched wood and water. Then she stirred the clothes as they boiled in a large bucket of water. She still has to rinse and dry them before she can get to her other chores. Each of her days, it seems, starts early and involves endless physical labor. She barely has time to relieve herself in the mornings. And even that is work, because she saves the ammonia-rich urine to bleach the worst stains. Such is the fate of a slave, and a mother, and a wife. Which reminds her, she still needs to pick up her husband's clothes. He worked through the night, and his clothes must be filthy by now. She leaves the shaded gallery, walks across the patio, and enters a narrow hallway. She finds her husband Jacob, where she expected him, in the small cabinet where he stores the tools of his trade. His shift just ended, and he is washing his hands. The stains on his work apron won't wash off as easily, Marie notes with disgust. Luckily, the apron is dyed red on purpose. Jacob asks his wife how her night went. Hopefully he did not keep her awake with all the noise. What about the baby? Of course she heard the noise. It was hard to ignore. Even though the walls are thick, the prison is not that big. Long sentences are rare in Haiti. A suspect is captured and questioned. If he confesses to his crimes, he endures some physical punishment. Then, if he's still alive, he's released. Marie knows this well, because her husband Jacob is the public executioner. He brands, whips, hamstrings, hangs, burns, breaks, draws, and quarters for a living. He also tortures suspects, which is legal in 18th century France. The preferred term is, quote, the question. This is what he did all night. The suspect is accused of murder. Moreau de Saint Mary, the legist investigating the case, enters the small cabinet. Marie lowers her eyes and steps aside while Moreau talks to her husband. Marie knows her place. Apparently, the question was inconclusive. The 1670 Ordinance on Criminal Procedure only authorizes torture if the suspect understands what is being asked of him. Moreau explains, but there's a problem. The suspect is a recently imported slave who only speaks a rare dialect of Igbo. Moreau could not get him to understand his questions, even with the help of a translator. After hours of useless prodding, Moreau sent the suspect back to his cell. Moreau will have to find a better translator and schedule another torture session, which irritates him. The question is his least favorite part of his job. What a terrible ordeal, he tells Jacob with a sigh. But the law is the law. The suspect needs to understand the questions, or the procedure won't be valid. Marie smiles discreetly in her corner. The suspect understands Creole all right, and even a bit of French. She spoke to him when he was brought to the prison last night. His name is Caesar. Marie told him about the legal loophole. He played his part perfectly by playing dumb. A washerwoman found a way to outsmart the finest legal mind in the colony. Moreau may be a legal expert, but Marie knows colonial justice intimately. Her journey through the French legal system began 6 months ago when she was forced to attend a large public execution. 30 runaway slaves were charged with group banditry, theft, and murder. 9 of them were sentenced to undergo terrible punishment on the wheel. She can still remember their faces and their names. Baptiste, Colin, Paul, Phaeton, Joseph, Perrault, Jeannot, Jacques, and Jean. She can still remember the swish of the axe that cut their right fist, then the sickening crack of the bones that were crushed one by the executioner. She also remembers Marie, Madeline, and Marie Yaya. The 3 women were sentenced to the more merciful penalty of death by hanging, but the French have not perfected the use of the trapdoor, which snaps the neck of the condemned when they fall. So the executioner simply pushed the women from a ladder, and they spent agonizing minutes wriggling and kicking before going limp. The last set of executions were almost comical by comparison. The next 5 culprits, who had committed the ultimate taboo of killing 2 white men, were sentenced to a particularly brutal end. But they were still on the lam, so the court ordered the executioner to draw 5 paintings of the condemned and then torture them, cut off their fists, draw, and quarter them. In effigy! This is bizarre, but not uncommon. Marie's husband occasionally executes libelous books and chastity belts as well. The people executed 6 months ago were not just anybody. They were Marie Goyo's friends. She and the 3 women had hosted some of the runaways and received stolen goods from them. One of the runaways, named Fourbon of all things, which means bandit, was her lover. Watching them die was the most awful day in a life that featured few good ones. Thank God that Fourbon was one of the lucky few who were merely executed in effigy. Like the 3 other women, Marie was sentenced to death for associating with criminals, but she was granted a stay of execution because she was pregnant. Courts don't kill innocent children, she was told. France is a nation of laws. Pregnant women get a few months' reprieve to deliver and nurse their child. Then they are put to death. This is how Marie survived the execution. For now. Her husband Jacob was already an executioner back then, but he was still single. He felt so lonely that he even petitioned the court to pardon Madeline, one of the women sentenced to be hanged, so that he could have a wife. The court denied his request. So Jacob hanged her. Then Jacob asked if he could marry Marie Goyo instead, since her execution had been delayed. This time the judges said yes, as long as the woman was willing. The judges are sticklers for the rules, and by law, slaves cannot be married against their will. Marie pondered the matter for days when Jacob proposed. She wanted to live, for herself and for the child to come. She did not want to end her life, writhing from a noose like the others. But at this cost? She could not get out of her mind the image of Jacob breaking and hanging all the people she loved. Could she let this man touch her? Then it dawned on her that Jacob did not write the law or sentence the suspects. He didn't even choose this job. Like Marie, he is a convicted slave whose death sentence was stayed so that he could become the public executioner. His status is so low that, when Jacob was appointed, the court clerk threw his commission on the ground. Marie took the deal. Like Jacob, she chose to live, no matter what. They were married in the Catholic Church, in front of the church actually, because the priest wouldn't let these 2 sinners enter his sanctuary. She would have liked to remind the priest that her only crime was loving a man who fled from slavery. Didn't Zipporah help Moses? She wisely chose to stay quiet. It took Marie some time, but she had started adjusting to her new life as a wife and a mother. At least Jacob provides. Though he is a slave, he is paid for each service he performs. 15 livres for cutting a fist, 30 livres for hanging a woman, 60 livres for breaking a man on the wheel. The numbers add up fast in this colony. They live in the prison of the Cape, both for their own safety. No one, black or white, likes the executioner, and to prevent them from escaping. But her husband occasionally ventures across the street to drink at a bar on Cat Street. He also goes all the way to the market square, or the church square on execution days. Marie has fewer opportunities to leave the prison, but laundry day is one of them. She adjusts the pile of clothes on her head, quiets the baby on her back, and heads back to the patio by the prison's entrance. A planer just brought in a woman. She and Marie lock eyes for a second. Marie knows what this is about. Authorities no longer allow slaves to be whipped in the streets of the Cape because it gives visitors a bad image of the colony. Slave owners now bring their slaves inside the prison and do their whipping there. Marie passes the woman quietly and makes her way to the ravine behind the prison. It is filled with refuse because it doubles as a landfill. The garbage is flushed to the Bay of the Cape whenever it rains. There is a trickle of water at the bottom of the ravine where she can rinse the clothes. When Marie finishes, she lays the clothes out to dry on a flat rock. Then she begins working on her husband's stained apron. She rubs it and rinses it and then rubs it some more, but try as she might, she can't wash away the blood. Marie pauses, sighs, and looks up at the other side of the ravine. The prison is located at the northwestern edge of town, where the orderly city blocks give way to the steep hills that tower above the cape. The hills are a favorite hiding spot for runaway slaves. Maybe she could join them. Maybe Vermont is out there. Maybe this nightmare will end. Then her thoughts returned to something her husband told her last night. His job is taking a physical toll on his body, and his hernia has gotten worse. This worries him. His death sentence was suspended, not forgiven, when he became the executioner. If he can no longer perform his duties, he may be fired. A black prisoner named Cadet is supposed to be hanged for theft soon. The authorities could very well ask the two men to switch roles. It is a matter of life and death that Jacob performs his duties, so he asked Marie to help him by becoming his valet de bureau. That is the official title of the assistant executioner. Marie must now make another life-changing decision. She can run to the hills with her baby to some uncertain future, or she could save her husband's life, assist him on the scaffold, and become part of the court-mandated system of terror that keeps the plantation colony going.
This is a note from the historian and author Philippe Girard. Marie Goyo was a real person, but for lack of good information on the lives of executioner wives in 18th century Haiti, I had to tweak the historical record here and there. For one thing, Marie Goyo did not live in the Cape in the 1780s, but in another Haitian city named Petit Goave in the 1720s. Some details in this chapter were also drawn from the lives of other executioners and their wives in 18th century Haiti. These caveats aside, this chapter, however bizarre and dark it may seem, is directly based on archival research, starting with a court document in which the executioner Jacob proposed to marry Marie Goyo instead of executing her, which must rank as one of the most bizarre proposals in the history of the world. This book is available on Amazon as a paperback, a hardback, an ebook, and an audiobook.